Let's welcome back after we've lost count. We were Xing the days off on the calendar, the weeks on when he was going to return. Then we were thinking, will he return? And by golly, here he is today, Mayor of the thriving metropolis of Lubbock, Texas. Glenn Robertson, how are you?
I'm good. Glad to be back.
Have you just been, avoiding us?
No, it was an extremely busy summer. I had a lot of trips I had to take, and I knew I was going to miss about 5 or 6 of the talk shows that I'm on regularly. And anytime I miss one, the other radio shows get upset. And
there are 5 or 6 talk shows?
Well, no, but I knew I was going to miss 5 or 6 in a 2-month period.
Oh, okay.
So instead of having people upset that I wasn't going to make it, I just thought the easiest thing was take a couple of months off. The other good thing is it gave other council members an opportunity to get out and get on some of these shows and get a little bit different point of view than just mine out there.
Okay.
Sure.
Well, you and Laura were kind of in the same boat. She gave me the days that she was going to be gone. And then before I could read the first sentence, she jerks it out of my hand. She says, here, let me write down the days that I will be here. And she wrote down 1, 2, 3, 4.
That's pretty much the way my summer was.
Yeah.
I worked my travel schedule the last 2 months around council meetings. And I'd try to get back on town the day before council meetings, and it seemed like invariably I was leaving town on the Friday afterwards.
Right. Hey, before we go to the break, we're going to say hello and congratulations to the LPD's new police chief, Greg Stevens. Man, congratulations.
Thank you.
You've been on the force how long?
Well, October will be 23 years.
Wow. Okay. Hey, we're going to find out more about Greg Stevens. Okay, just off mic, just like less than 10 seconds ago, the mayor's busting my chops thinking that we were dissing the new police chief. We had a box of Krispy Kremes in here. He was like, well, you don't even lay the donuts in front of the cop.
We always have Krispy Kremes. We didn't get those just because you were here today.
Okay.
We just didn't want you to think that we were profiling you.
That's what it was. I get it. Okay, I see.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome Greg Stevens, the new police chief. I guess not really officially until you get the pen today at 2 o'clock.
So to speak.
Yeah.
So it is official, though.
It's
7-0 vote last night.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of the few times that you get a unanimous thing that, usually the mayor says, all in favor, or you hear the so moved, all in favor, aye. Next thing. Not the case last night. But anyway, you got a unanimous vote. Congratulations.
Tell us about your career.
Yeah. Well, on that note there, I feel good if I can get my twins to unanimously agree to something. So I was excited
Right.
about 7 people last night. My dad was a police officer. I was born and raised in Amarillo, Texas, and he became a policeman there in 1966 before I was born, and I grew up watching him do that work, and so really that's what I've wanted to do my whole life. And when I graduated high school, sort of by the skin of my teeth, college wasn't going to be the route for me. You have to be 21 to be a police officer, and so I needed something to do between 18 and 21. And the military you can go into and be a military police officer right away. So that's kind of the path for me. My dad took me to a recruiter, and I went into boot camp a month after high school. And did 4 years of active duty in the Air Force as a military police officer. Was a canine handler. Lived in Alaska, actually is where I was stationed for the 4-year enlistment for most of the time. Had some great experiences. Worked with U.S. Customs doing drug dog work. The Anchorage International Airport, different places there. Went overseas a couple times. Anyway, in 1992 I got out and needed a police job. Amarillo at the time had pretty strict nepotism rules. I couldn't even apply because my dad was still in the police department there, and so I needed a job. I took a shotgun approach, tested from Albuquerque all the way out to Texarkana, down to San Antonio, just all over the region. Did really good on Lubbock's entrance exam. It's close to home, at the same size, and I needed a job, and they were hiring. Worked out for the two of us, and that was almost 23 years ago. In 2001, it was a pretty tough year, actually. We had a pretty significant event in July. A police officer was killed. I was engaged at the time. Earlier that month, I'd proposed to my wife, and in August, I got married. Kind of a tough wedding with a bunch of sad policemen there. In September, the 9/11 attacks occurred. I'd gone back into the Navy in 1998. Wanted to go back in, or I went back in the military. I wanted to go back in the reserves and switched over to the Navy. So I was a military police officer in the Navy, Master at Arms. the September 11th terrorist attacks occurred, a month after I got married. And I got recalled 9 days later to active duty. And so, had a new wife, new family, new house, based on a police sergeant's salary. Got recalled as an E4, lost about half of my income. Didn't know where I was going, what was going to happen, and away I went. And when I got back in 2002, my wife and I kind of sat down and had to figure out what we were going to do. Was I going to stay in the military? Where was I going to go from there with that part of my career? And I kind of took a hard look at what I was going to be when I grew up, I think. And I thought about, the long-term goal, and I had the idea of being a police chief. And so I looked at it and said, well, what does it take to be a police chief? And more importantly, what does it take to be successful as a police chief? Education was going to be a big deal. At that time, I had maybe 60, 70 hours of college. So went back to Wayland Baptist University and finished out a bachelor's degree in criminal justice, promoted to lieutenant, and kept going through those steps, working towards an education, promoting, going to different parts of the police department. In 2005, I got a commission in the Navy as an intelligence officer, kept that military career going. Went back to graduate school at Texas Tech, finished a master's in business administration. A lot of mentors said that a business degree would be useful as a police chief. They were right. I think they were correct. It's been very helpful as an assistant chief and as a police commander. Also very helpful as an intelligence officer in the Navy. I went to the FBI's National Academy. I put in for that, was selected. It's it's kind of a must-have to be a big city police chief. Went to the state's version of that. It's called LEMIT, the Law Enforcement Management Institute of Texas. So all these things along the way, I've been doing not only to be credentialed to be a police chief, but also to be successful as a police chief. And these things are what you kind of have to have to know how to run a large organization, whether it's a police department, a bank, whatever. And so that's been the goal, but specifically not just a police chief, but the Lubbock, Texas police chief. And so I retired from the Navy March 1st of this year, finished the graduate degree, MBA from Texas Tech in December of 2013. So that's where I've kind of got to this point right now.
Well, look at that. He ain't
Sounds
stupid
like our
either.
police force is in very good hands.
We'll see. I hope. I think
He's educated. Hey, no, that's very that's very commendable. That because usually when people go right out of high school into the military, they're on a path, and oftentimes they don't go back to school. But to go back and get the MBA, man, that's heavy duty. I applaud that. Very well spoken. Probably better than I.
No.
Why is the mayor laughing? Here I'm trying to be humble about this whole thing, and you guys are busting my chops. All right.
Well, it's obviously something that you've been working towards for the last 23 years, with this goal in mind.
I'm a goal setter. I think that's the way to accomplish things. You can't do everything at once, so you have to set goals, short term, long term, and then begin to chip away at them. It's how you eat an elephant, one bite at a time.
Yeah. Now, I just had a question for you, and I know you've probably got this question from several different sides already. What would you do? What will you? What will you? What will you? What would you? But a lot of people have had concerns, in recent months, about just information flow and the way things, some of these things that happened with, the PD, most recent days, the Issa Saga thing, crime line money, all that stuff. And so what is your take on this? How do you think you can solve, misperceptions or avoid misperceptions, through communication? I mean, because a lot of people, is it setting the expectation of the public? Is that what it's about?
Well, I think one of the biggest things is one of the biggest challenges is dealing with perceptions. Too often we try to fall back and defend reality, and we lose sight of the fact that your perception is your reality, and we have to address that. And in terms of communications, we're falling short there in communicating outside of the agency. But the reason for that is that we're falling short on communication inside the agency. And so before we can hope to fix some of the problems that we've got externally, we have to focus and fix what our problems are internally. And so when you talk about transparency, and I tend to think right now in society we've overused the word transparency. It's almost lost its meaning because everybody wants to be transparent. Your new buzzword, I'm transparent, which means I'm better than you. What does that really mean, actually? So, but that's my own issue with that word. We need to find something new for it. But before we can fix transparency in terms of outside the agency, we've got a problem with transparency inside the agency. And so we need to really fix that and work on that. And when we talk about fairness and equity outside, we need to talk about that inside, and we've got some issues there. And one thing that where that really rings true is procedural justice. It's a paradigm, if you will, that is kind of 21st century law enforcement, sort of a leadership model of law enforcement. And there's 4 pillars of that, and it espouses that that's the way we should deal with the public, the way we should treat people. And transparency is one of those, treating people with respect, dignity. So there's these things, but first that has to occur inside the agency. So the way that the executives and the commanders and the supervisors, the way we treat people all the way down the line, in your disciplinary processes, in your transfer processes, if we're not treating the employees that way with transparency, with fairness and equity, if they don't have a voice about the way that the organization is run, you can't hope even to have that outside the agency. How the officers treat the public. First, we have to focus on that inside. The best analogy there is if you look at your kids. Where do they learn their behavior? And if they're acting in a certain way outside the house, well, they learned that inside the house from their parents. So that's the best analogy to show how true that really is. So we've got some issues that we're going to work on inside the agency and set a few things straight, hit the reset button, and that'll solve a lot of the issues going outside on its own. Then we can start focusing on some active solutions outside the agency, especially with communication, transparency, and issues like that.
Right. Well, sounds like at least a good plan to me.
He's a man with a plan.
Yeah, you have something going on there. Okay, got a call on the line. Craig from Colorado City. Go, man, you're on the air. Hello.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Go ahead. You got a question for Greg?
Sure do. Is there any way that you're going to address corruption by the Lubbock FBI? They're out of control there in Lubbock and causing a lot of problems with citizens. And everybody in the city of Lubbock government seems just to be cowardice to bury their head in the sand like it doesn't exist. Are you going to do anything about that?
Craig, it's been a long time since I've heard from you.
Hello?
Yes, sir.
Hello?
Yeah, I'm right here.
Craig, it's been a long time since we've heard from you, at least a day and a half. Once you give me a call at the police department, and we'll see what we can talk with you about.
Well, let's conduct a real investigation, and it'll prove violent criminal behavior by the Lubbock FBI. And until you address that, nothing's going to work in Lubbock.
Continuing conversation with, I believe this is the least talkative Mayor Glenn's ever been on the show.
We haven't given him much of a chance.
Like I said, your turn's coming. Your turn's coming. All right. Hey, Greg, I know you got to get on to your next interview. Thanks for giving us the first interview this morning. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Okay, relatively speaking, I think your approach is a logical approach. Off mic, you were saying, hey, again, and on mic, you said that you've got to fix some things on the inside. But kind of from what you say, I get the impression that your feeling is if you sweat the small stuff, most of the big stuff's going to fall in line and take care of itself, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to emphasize, it's not really me that's going to fix anything. We've got, I think, some of the greatest people in the world. I've been around the country, actually around the world, doing police work. Again, I had a long military police career as well. And in the FBI National Academy, that's an international event. There's foreign countries that send their police commanders and police executives there to that curriculum. We have some of the very best police officers in the entire world here in Lubbock, Texas. They're ready to fix a lot of the issues that we have. So it's not just me that's going to get us going in the right direction. We have the vast majority of the department that has great ideas. that want to go in some new directions. They want to do a lot of new and exciting things. And we have, we're in the human business. We have human capital. That's what we bring to bear. We don't build a product. We don't sell a product. We are an organization or a business that is very human centric, and so we want to focus on the paramount value of our human capital. And so we're going to bring all of that to bear. We have people that have vast experiences. They have education. They have degrees in science. They have degrees in business, degrees in some mathematics, communication, what have you. And not just education, but experience from the military, experience from other careers. So we want to bring all of that to bear. We want to focus on what everyone brings to the table. And that's what's going to make all the difference going forward.
All right. Congratulations on the confirmation, and you get pinned today at 2 o'clock. Your dad's coming in from Amarillo to stick you with a pin, yes?
He is, and there's I think he's sort of living vicariously now through me. So
hey,
I'm sure he's very proud of you.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah, really, man. Appreciate you coming in. Thank you again.
You bet. Thank you.